Some people regret getting tattoos. Others regret getting married. But no one's allowed to say they regret having children and you become a monster. So those people stay silent. They tuck it under bedtime stories and school lunches and birthday parties. They love their kids, and in the darkest part of themselves, they wish they'd never had them. They're in parked cars before going inside, in therapist offices, in showers at 11 p.m. They exist everywhere, and nobody gives them space to speak because we've decided parenthood is sacred and regret about it is a crime. This video is not an attack on parents. It is not about hating children. It is about the lie, the multi-generational, socially enforced lie that parenthood is the natural destination of every human life, that wanting it is default, that not wanting it requires explanation and justification and apology. Having children is the most irreversible decision a human being can make, and most people make it without ever truly deciding. No one sits a child down and says, here is what this actually costs. 2 decades of financial dependency, a complete restructuring of your identity, a documented increase in relationship strain. Studies consistently show marital satisfaction drops significantly after the first child, and many marriages don't recover. Permanent loss of autonomy, emotional labor with no off switch, a role you cannot quit, resign from, or pause. Instead, they give her a baby doll. They show him a movie where becoming a father is the happy ending. By the time you're an adult, the script is written inside you. You don't question whether you want children, you question when. The family dinner where someone asks, so when's the baby coming? Not if, when. The biological clock joke starting in your mid-20s. The coworker who says genuinely, don't you get lonely? As if your life without a child is a waiting room, as if the real thing hasn't started yet. Philosopher and sociologist Ora Donath spent years interviewing mothers who quietly, privately wished they hadn't become mothers. Women who love their children, who were good mothers, who would die for those children, and who also, in the private truth of themselves, mourn the life they didn't live. She published the book Regretting Motherhood. The backlash was enormous because we don't allow that truth to exist publicly. Those women are not monsters, not broken, not selfish. They're people who said yes without understanding what they were agreeing to, because nobody told them saying no was a real option. The conditioning runs through every layer of culture. Religion frames reproduction as duty. Be fruitful and multiply. Your body is not fully yours. Gender rules treat a childless woman as incomplete, a childless man as unserious or immature. Family pressure is rarely explicit. It's a silence at the table. A look, a joke repeated until it becomes expectation. The romantic myth that a baby solidifies love, saves a struggling relationship, makes everything mean something. Not one of those is a reason to create a human being, but they are the reasons most human beings get created. Here is what the baby shower doesn't cover. Your sleep will be destroyed for months, possibly years. Sleep deprivation at the levels new parents experience is classified as torture by international human rights frameworks. Your brain function degrades, your emotional regulation collapses, your capacity for patience, perspective, and basic reasoning deteriorates, and you have to parent through all of it. Your relationship with your partner, if you have one, will be tested in ways you cannot prepare for. The research is consistent. Relationship satisfaction drops after the first child. Conflict increases, intimacy decreases. The division of labor, even in couples who believe they're egalitarian, almost always becomes unequal. Resentment builds quietly. Many relationships don't survive the first 5 years of parenthood. Your career, particularly if you're a woman, will take a hit documented so thoroughly that it has a name, the motherhood penalty. Women's earnings drop, men's earnings sometimes rise. The gap widens. The career you spent years building restructures itself around school pickups and sick days, and the mental load that never fully sits with the father even when both parents are working full-time. Your identity will be restructured whether you want it to or not. The person you were before, with time, with space, with the ability to be spontaneous, to have a bad day that only affects you, to fail without a witness who depends on you, that person gets dissolved. Some people find something better on the other side. Many grieve what they lost and never say it out loud because the culture tells them they should be grateful. The financial number is obscene. In the United States, raising a child to 18 costs between $250,000 and $400,000 in current dollars. That is before college, before therapy, before accounting for the income you didn't earn because you stepped back from work, before the opportunity cost of every investment you couldn't afford to take because someone else now depends on your stability. None of this means parenthood is wrong. It means we are lying by omission on a massive scale. People are making permanent, irreversible decisions based on an incomplete picture because the culture actively suppresses the full information. There is a question underneath all of this that almost no one asks out loud, not because it's unanswerable, because the implications are uncomfortable. What gives you the right to create a person? Not can you, not do you want to. On what ethical grounds do you make an irreversible decision on behalf of a person who cannot consent, cannot weigh in, cannot refuse? We live in a culture that takes informed consent seriously in almost every context. Medical procedures require it, contracts require it, sexual activity requires it, but reproduction, the most consequential imposition you will ever make on another consciousness, gets a standing exemption. We don't just permit it without consent, we celebrate it. Philosopher David Benatar argues that coming into existence is always a serious harm, not because life contains no good, but because suffering is not a maybe, it is a guarantee. Every person alive suffers. Every child born tomorrow will suffer. Illness, loss, failure, rejection, loneliness, fear, the knowledge of their own death. You cannot protect them from any of it. You can love them perfectly and still watch them suffer in ways that will break your heart and that your love cannot fix. And here is the piece that hits hardest. You will also hurt them yourself. Not because you're malicious, because you're human. Because every parent transmits their unresolved fears, their unexamined beliefs, their wounds, their limitations. Generational trauma is not a metaphor or a therapy buzzword. It is a documented psychological phenomenon. The way anxiety, attachment disorders, emotional unavailability, and specific coping patterns pass from parent to child with a consistency that research has measured repeatedly. You will wound your child in ways you cannot predict, in ways you may never understand. The child will carry those wounds into their own life and relationships. Some will heal them, many will pass versions of them forward. Benatar's argument is simple. If someone never exists, they suffer nothing. If they do exist, suffering is certain. Non-existence is never experienced as a loss. Existence is experienced as everything, including all the pain. So the decision to create a life must be justified, not just desired, not just socially expected, genuinely, ethically justified. I want one is not a justification. It is a desire that the potential person pays for, a desire they never agreed to satisfy. There are specific thoughts that exist in the minds of parents that the culture has made unspeakable. Saying them out loud does not make them more true, it makes them more honest. And honesty is the only way forward. I love my child and I miss my life. These two things coexist constantly in millions of households, and we only permit the first sentence to be spoken. I didn't realize I would lose myself this completely. The absorption of parental identity into the role, particularly for mothers, is something people describe only in hushed tones or in anonymous forums. In public, they say it's worth it. In private, they mourn themselves. My relationship has never fully recovered. Not the passion, not the ease, not the version of their partner they married. The child changed everything, and some of those things don't change back. I had this child for reasons I am only now understanding, and they were not good reasons. Loneliness, fear of being left behind, pressure from a partner, a feeling that life needed to mean something, a belief that this would finally make them feel complete. And then the child arrives, and the loneliness is still there, the fear is still there, the emptiness is still there, plus a dependent human being who did not sign up to solve any of it. I wonder what my life would have been. This thought is not betrayal, it is human, but we've made it shameful so it festers instead of being acknowledged and processed. A man anonymously, I never wanted children, but she did. I didn't want to lose her. Now I've lost myself. That is not a rare story, that is a pattern. and the child in that household grows up in the presence of a parent who is emotionally absent in ways that have nothing to do with love and everything to do with a choice that was never honestly made. Set aside philosophy, look at data. The IPCC does not produce pessimistic projections. It produces conservative scientific consensus, and that consensus says climate-related disasters will intensify dramatically over the coming decades. The people alive in 2050 will face a world meaningfully harder than the one we inhabit now. The children born today will be in their late 20s in 2050. They will bear consequences of decisions made before they were born by systems they had no part building and cannot fully dismantle. Housing affordability in most major cities is already broken for young people. In major cities across the UK, US, Australia, and Canada, a single person on a median salary cannot afford a one-bedroom apartment without spending an obscene proportion of their income. The generation being born now will enter a housing market harder than anything their parents navigated.
Mental health among young people is measurably, statistically getting worse, not because of awareness or improved reporting, though both are factors. The underlying rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness in people under 25 are at recorded highs. The social environment children are growing up in, algorithmically optimized for engagement and outrage, comparison-driven, always on, is producing documented psychological harm at scale that nobody has yet solved. Automation is restructuring labor markets in ways that will not resolve themselves neatly. The jobs that parents trained for in the 1990s and 2000s are not the jobs that will exist when today's children reach working age. Nobody knows what that map looks like. You can still choose to have children knowing all of this. People do. But to do it unconsciously, reflexively, because everyone around you is doing it, because the social pressure is too heavy to examine, that is not love. That is not courage. That is avoidance dressed as tradition. The accusation thrown at people who choose not to have children is selfishness. You just want to live for yourself. You don't want to sacrifice. You're choosing comfort over meaning. Turn it over. Who is actually making the self-interested decision here? The person who decides not to create a new consciousness because they've honestly assessed the world, their capacity, and the ethics of creating someone who cannot consent? Or the person who creates a child because they want someone to love them unconditionally, because they need meaning, because they're afraid of dying alone, because they need to feel like their life mattered? A child is not a retirement plan, not a companion for your old age, not a second chance, not a legacy, not a cure for your existential loneliness, not proof that you did something real with your time. A child is a person who will have their own needs, their own perspective, their own suffering, a person who might deeply resemble you or nothing like you, a person who might love you back the way you imagined, or might feel at some point that your expectations were a weight they spent years trying to put down. Creating a person to satisfy your own emotional needs is the selfish choice. Deciding not to create one because you've thought honestly about what they would be born into and what you'd actually be capable of giving, that is not selfishness. That is the most serious possible respect for a life you're considering calling into existence. There is a growing, quiet population of people who looked at what they'd inherited, the dysfunction, the patterns, the wounds, and decided not to pass it forward. Not out of self-pity, not out of bitterness, out of clarity. They saw the specific ways their childhood shaped them, the anxious attachment, the avoidant patterns, the relationship with anger or with silence or with failure, the ways they still, as adults, are working to undo what was built into them before they could choose otherwise, and they said, it ends here. That is not failure. That is one of the most demanding things a person can do, to see themselves clearly enough to know their limits and to love a potential person enough not to impose those limits on them. Some of them grieve this. It is a real loss, the life they could have had if things had been different. They sit with it. They don't perform contentment about it, and they also know they made the right call. And what they found on the other side of that decision is not emptiness. They found time, not just on a calendar, but the kind that lets you become fully yourself. They found relationships freely chosen. They found capacity to care for people in their lives without being depleted. They found meaning, and meaning, it turns out, does not require a birth certificate to be legitimate. They also found that the judgment never fully stops. The pity at family gatherings, the predictions about deathbed regret, as if other people can see your future more clearly than you can. The assumption that you must be sad about it because the alternative, that you're genuinely fine, disrupts the story the culture needs to tell itself. You are not sad, you are whole, and no one else's discomfort with your wholeness is your problem to manage. The child who knows they weren't wanted. There is a cruelty embedded in the regret conversation that almost nobody mentions, because the conversation is always about the parent's lost identity, the parent's mourned freedom, the parent's private grief. The child grows up in that house. Children are not oblivious. They are extraordinarily sensitive instruments tuned to the emotional reality of the people who raise them. A parent's emotional absence, not cruelty, not neglect in the legal sense, just the ambient flatness of someone going through the motions they never chose, registers in a child's nervous system before the child has language to describe it. They feel the gap between what is said and what is meant. They feel the performance of warmth that doesn't quite reach the eyes. And they spend years, sometimes decades, translating that feeling into something they can live with. The most common translation is, "There is something wrong with me." Not with the situation, with me. I am too much, not enough, the wrong shape for the love that was available. Children do not have access to the structural explanation. They have access to their own experience. And their experience is, I am here, and the person who made me seems somewhere else. This is not hypothetical. This is what adult children of emotionally unavailable parents describe in therapy, in memoirs, in anonymous forums, in the careful, precise language people use when they've spent years making sense of something that hurt them before they knew what hurt was. The parent who regrets parenthood but stays silent, stays functional, keeps performing, that parent believes they are protecting their child. And in one narrow sense, they are. But the child is not protected from the atmosphere. The child breathes it. The child builds themselves around it. And some of those children carry into adulthood a specific kind of wound that is very hard to name. The wound of being loved by someone who didn't fully choose to love you. The wound of being wanted not quite enough. We don't talk about this because it indicts both directions at once. It says that unexamined reproduction produces parents in pain and children who absorb that pain and turn it into something they call a personality. It says the lie doesn't end when the child is born. It continues, quietly, in the house, at the dinner table, in the silences. What adult children actually owe their parents? The cultural script is blunt. Your parents sacrificed for you, therefore you owe them. Your debt is permanent. You repay it through presence, through care, through the suppression of inconvenient truths about what they did or didn't give you. Here is what is actually true. A parent choosing to have a child is not doing the child a favor. The child did not ask to be born. The child did not request the financial investment, the sleepless nights, the years of labor. Those were choices the parent made, motivated by their own desire. You cannot incur a debt through a transaction the other party never agreed to. What it does not earn is immunity from accountability. The parent who hurt their child through emotional unavailability, through control, through the slow transmission of their own unresolved damage does not get to call in the sacrifice debt to cancel that ledger. What you spent raising someone does not offset what you cost them. Adult children who establish distance from damaging parents are not being selfish. They are doing something the culture frames as betrayal precisely because the culture needs the obligation script to function. If we admit that children don't owe their parents unconditional presence, we have to admit that parents don't automatically deserve it. And that opens a door to examining what parents actually did, a door the culture keeps firmly shut. The adult child who looks at their parent clearly, accounts for what was actually given and what was actually taken, and decides based on that honest accounting how much access to give going forward, that person is not cold. That person is doing something that requires more courage than most family systems ever produce. The parent who loved you and still broke you. There is a version of this conversation that is easy to dismiss. It concerns the obviously bad parents, the ones who are cruel, absent, addicted, violent. That harm is legible. Culture allows it. We have language for it.
But the version nobody wants to sit with is this: the parent who loved you genuinely, sacrificed for you visibly, wanted what was best for you, and still managed to damage you in ways that took years to understand and more years to undo. This is the most common form of harm in the psychological literature. Not malice, not neglect, the ordinary transmission of a damaged interior into the formation of a new one. The anxious parent who raised an anxious child, not by anything they said, but by the way they held their body when the phone rang. The emotionally avoidant father who taught his children that needing something was weakness, not by ever saying so, but by leaving the room. The mother who loved her daughter so much that she merged with her, and the daughter spent 30 years trying to locate herself underneath the merger. These parents did not intend any of this. Most of them would be devastated to know. Some of them already know in the part of themselves they don't visit. And here is what makes it so difficult. Love is real, and damage is real, and they come from the same source. The parent who shaped your fear of abandonment did it out of their own fear of abandonment. The parent who made it impossible for you to ask for help made it impossible because no one taught asking was permitted. The wound traveled. You are not the origin of it. You are a stop along a route that started before you were born. What you do with that understanding is up to you. You can have compassion for the root without letting it continue through you. You can understand your parents' damage without making it your responsibility to absorb it indefinitely. You can love someone and still clearly see what they cost you. These things are not contradictions. They are what it actually looks like to reckon with the family you were born into rather than the one you imagined you had. And if you're going to have children, this is the work. Not the nursery, not the name, this. Understanding what you carry, understanding how it moves, deciding what you are willing to do concretely, consistently, over time to stop it moving through you and into someone who has no choice but to receive it. If you're going to have a child, have one, but have one because you chose it, not because it chose you by default. That means asking questions most people never ask before doing this. Why do I want this? Not the answer you'd give at a dinner party, the real answer. Sit with it long enough that the comfortable answers fall away and you find the honest one underneath. What am I carrying that I haven't resolved? Because you will pass it on. That is not a maybe, that is how it works. What are you prepared to do, actively, consistently, for years, to not transmit your wounds to someone who can't consent to receiving them? What does this child's world look like? Not the Instagram version, the actual version. What are the realistic conditions of a life starting now in this country, on this planet, in this economic reality? What happens to the version of me that exists before this? Where does that person go? Am I prepared to lose them, potentially permanently, in ways I cannot fully anticipate? What happens if my child is not who I imagined? What if they're deeply different from me? What if they struggle in ways I can't fix? What if they resent me? What if their relationship is hard for decades? Am I choosing parenthood as a concept, or am I choosing an actual unknown human being with their own interiority that has nothing to do with my vision of them? These are not meant to talk you out of it. They are the actual questions, and if the culture permitted people to sit with them honestly before the pregnancy, before the social announcement, before the momentum made the decision for them, fewer people would end up in parked cars before going inside, crying in ways they can't explain to anyone. The most important thing you can do for the child you're considering having is to decide, honestly, whether to have them at all. Not because the culture expects it, not because your parents want grandchildren, not because your partner is ready and you don't want to lose them, not because you're afraid of what your life looks like if you don't, because you looked at everything clearly and said yes. That yes means something. It's not a script, it's a choice. And the child who arrives into that yes, the one who was chosen after honest reckoning, not inherited as the logical next step in an unexamined life, that child has a different foundation than one who arrived because nobody stopped to ask the question. This is not about optimizing parenthood. It is about making the decision real, making it yours, giving it the weight it deserves. Because it is the most irreversible thing you will ever do, and irreversible decisions deserve more than momentum. They deserve a choice.